Hey girl, hey, it's Birth Bestie Nurse Rini, and I am here with a true crime and childbirth story. A good combo for you. So let's dive in. You know, I attend YouTube University and I saw the story on law and crime, and I was like, oh my goodness, we have to talk about it. So this article was written in Yahoo News on June 11, 2025, and it says Lansing faith healing couple sentenced for death of baby who died of treatable condition. So we have to talk about it. The grandparents of a newborn girl who died from a treatable condition after her parents refused to get her medical care pleaded with their daughter to alter her path during a sentencing hearing Wednesday, June 11th in Ingham County Circuit Court. We want you back, we love you, and we willingly forgive you, Rachel Pylan's father, Glenn Kerr, said before Rachel, 38, and her husband, Joshua Pylan, 44, were sentenced to a minimum of 20 years in prison for second-degree murder and first-degree child abuse. We are ready and willing. I pray this will not be the last time we see you. Rachel's mother, Rebecca Kerr, said she longs for the return of their close relationship, even though Rachel chose to follow an extreme religious doctrine that pushed her away from her family and prompted decisions that led to the death of Abigail Pylan in 2017. Those decisions created layers of trauma in the lives of the couple's children, Kerr said. Love you, sweetie, Rebecca Kerr said moments before Ingham County Circuit Judge James Jamo handed down Rachel's sentences. Baby Abigail was just 61 hours old when she died at the Pylan's Lansing home from a treatable condition that caused a lethal buildup of bilirubin, a condition known as jaundice. A jury convicted them of second-degree murder and first-degree child abuse following a trial in March. In separate hearings, Jamo on June 11 sentenced each to 240 months to 540 months or 20 to 45 years in prison for second-degree murder and 225 months to 540 months in prison for first-degree child abuse. Those sentences will run concurrently, and both defendants will get 77 days credit for time served. What seemed like a factually dense, complicated case turned out to be relatively simple in the end, the judge said. The jury found Abigail died from the intentional withholding of medical care and convicted her parents of murder, he said. What you have done has impacted multiple lives, he told Rachel Pylan. Jamo said protection of society was an important factor because there is no reason to believe the Pylans, if given the opportunity, would act differently in a future scenario. Very true. And that means there is a high risk and need for protection of the children. Deputy Chief Assistant Ingham County Prosecutor Bill Crino said everyone has the right to make health decisions for themselves, but the law requires parents to protect their children, and that includes seeking medical help when necessary. The Pylan's pattern behavior continued with two subsequent children who were born with the same issues as Abigail but survived after the state took them from their parents and got them life-saving medical care, he noted. They adamantly failed to provide medical care without even consulting someone. The judge noted that Abigail died from an essentially eradicated and easily preventable disease. Wednesday's hearings ended an 8-year criminal legal sentence stemming from the death of Abigail, who died from a treatable condition that caused a lethal buildup of bilirubin, a condition known as jaundice. The couple lost custody of all of their surviving children in civil court proceedings. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of what actually happened. Parents prayed over the body instead of calling 911. Abigail was born late on February 6, 2017, with the assistance of a midwife, so she was born at home. She died on the morning of February 9, 2017, as a result of hemolytic disease of the newborn, which in turn resulted from an Rh incompatibility between her and her mother. So this is essentially like blood incompatibility between baby and mom. In a hospital, typically the baby's blood is going to be sent to be analyzed by the blood bank and by the lab, and they'll return with the baby's blood type and let you know whether or not the baby is high risk for jaundice. Usually once the lab notices that, they call the doctor, and the doctor immediately starts the baby on phototherapy. So the parents and a group of friends prayed over Abigail's lifeless body, and no one at the home called 911 to report the death. Police were alerted by a relative who lives in California and responded to the house about 9 hours after Abigail died. The jury deliberated about 4 hours over 2 days before returning its verdict. after listening to days of testimony by police, medical doctors, and other witnesses. Abigail died from a condition so rare that it's basically been eradicated, according to the testimony. The blood incompatibility problem is easily treated with a prenatal injection. Okay. They're probably talking about Rogam. And doctors testify that Abigail still could have been saved after she was born if she had received treatment. That's the phototherapy that we talked about. After 20 hours, About 20 hours after Abigail was born, a midwife and her assistant noticed she was jaundiced and advised she be taken to a hospital immediately. But the couple declined. Rachel's mother, who had traveled from Grand Rapids to help with the baby, also implored her daughter to seek medical care for Abigail, but the couple declined. We believed praying was the best thing we could possibly do for her, Rachel Pylan testified in the trial. Even if she had died from some kind of struggle, we wouldn't have called 911. Well, that's rather unfortunate, which means the courts were right? To take their kids away, the other kids, and to get them treatment because they would have suffered the same fate. Attorneys for the Pylons argue they cared for their daughter as best they could and said prosecutors failed to prove that they acted with the intent necessary for them to be guilty of murder and involuntary manslaughter. They also said Joshua and Rachel tried to treat Abigail's jaundice by placing her in a sunlit window and did what they could to help her on their own. And both of them thought Abigail was getting better just before she died, they said. So here's the thing, right? Why this doesn't quite add up. They knew that the baby was sick. They knew that she needed treatment. Even though they are not the professionals, they received medical advice from a professional that said take the baby to the hospital. Now, this was a home midwife, right? So this lady delivered her at home and she's recommending that you take your baby to the doctor. She probably listened to her because she's not going to recommend that all willy-nilly after you having just had it given birth at home, right? I think what's also important to note is that they knew that the baby needed help and their efforts were to put the baby by the window, which is not standard of care, guys. It's not standard of care. Phototherapy is, and supplementation if necessary, right? You know, they knew something was wrong, so they tried to act on their own instead of acting based on what the professional said. And what's more, I think what's a little more disturbing is that they knew enough not to have the baby on their own, right? They invited a midwife into their home. So they got medical care for themselves, but didn't get medical care for their baby. So, what do you guys think? Do you think they should have been charged as they were and set to serve basically almost life sentences? Or do you think that they should have been in control of what happened to their child? Do you think the courts should have gotten involved with this one? Or do you side with the parents and say, hey, they chose their faith and they prayed on it and they prayed for intervention, and this was just the unfortunate outcome, depending on how you see it, and this was their right? I know in the hospitals, when someone is making a decision that doesn't quite gel well for medical advice or, directly goes against medical advice and could be harmful to the child, the ethics team will get involved. And their job isn't to persuade you, but their job is to make sure that you have a full grasp and understanding of what you are doing. And in some cases, they will get the courts involved if necessary. So let me know if you think this couple was sentenced appropriately, that they deserve to go to jail, or do you think that they had the right to, depend on their faith and pray it away, and then whatever happens, happens. Let me know. What do you think? Like, comment, share, and follow for more. Oh, and if you don't follow me on the YT, the Tubi, then make sure you check out my channel at Nurse Rini Birth Bestie. I actually have a module on there for free about jaundice. It's super common, so you should definitely check it out if you're pregnant or having had near your birthing time.